House representative from District 93. He's my representative. Now yours is mine. And Ms. Konni Burton, our state senator for Senate District 10.
Okay, all right, how much time do we have for both of us? Time for Burton? 44? Okay.
Now we're good Q&A.
Okay, great. And do I know how to do this? He'll be right back. Okay, you know what, so that'll give me an opportunity, I just have some slides of some legislation that I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about what we tried to do the last couple of sessions. What I might do is just go straight to the last session instead of going with the other one too. But anyway, I want to tell you really quickly because Maggie was up here talking about the SBOE. I have sent a letter in the capacity of senator to my own, to Pat Hardy, who is our SBOE member. Absolutely, horrified that they could be taking out the word heroic and cutting out the letter. I have written that to them. I CC'd the rest of the SBOE members. I will tell you, it just went out today. I was horrified when I read that article. I will tell you, I've already gotten a couple of responses back from the SBOE members, and so far, they're saying this is unacceptable to us as well, because what they have to do is okay the, what was it called? It was a work group. It was a work group actually that proposed these particular things to do. And so, but that doesn't, I'm not saying that you shouldn't call your SBO, I would say it was Pat Hardy for everybody here, right? It's a huge district, right? So still call Pat Hardy or email and let her know about your concerns about that, because I'm very concerned about that when I read it. Okay. Okay. And maybe Matt Krause wants to say something.
I agree. No, I agree. In fact, so I put it on social media, this whole thing about being heroic, and I had some people actually come back at me and I said, so do you not think that the Alamo defenders were heroic? I said, no, we think they're heroes. We just don't think we should be having those kind of value judgments in education. I'm saying, you're right, that is a value judgment, but it's based in fact, right? I mean, and so then I asked, okay, so are there Alamo defenders you don't think are heroic? Or were there heroic people in the Mexican army that you want recognized? Or did you think the whole exercise was that? So it's so funny that people are just against things, but they don't really know why they're against things a lot of times. And so we drill down deep, they don't have good answers. They just think, oh, you can't say they were heroic because that's not a nuanced enough approach to everything that was taking place. Well, I think we all agree that if 180 people know that they're sacrificing their life for a cause greater than themselves and willing to stay there and give up their lives, that is heroic. And so I don't think there's any doubt that, I really don't think they're gonna take the recommendation at the end of the day, but you want to make sure you give them enough cover and enough reason to say, no, we heard from our constituents loud and clear that this is not what we're supposed to do. So should we get into criminal justice reform too? So we'll just start. And I'll tell you, when I ran for the first time in 2010 and when I was successful in 2012, criminal justice reform was not on my radar at all. But first, actually, I want to say to Bob, this guy, as he said in the end, he could just be living a life of leisure. He could just be, kind of relaxing, enjoying all the incredible things that he did in the business world for decades, and just kind of enjoying that during this phase of life. But he hasn't. I know you're working hard now, and I have a great amount of respect and admiration for you. So thank you for what you're doing. Scripture never talks about retirement, and you're doing that to the fullest. So great job. Criminal justice reform, nothing I ever thought about, and I went to a Texas Public Policy Foundation briefing. They started talking about the conservative case for criminal justice reform, and it kind of blew my mind. I never thought about it. I thought if you're a bad person, you get caught by the law, you need to go to jail, and you need to spend your time. Then we started talking about the fallout from what happens when that person goes to jail when maybe they shouldn't. First thing they said is we should be putting people in jail that we're scared of, not that we're mad at. And I thought, oh, that's a great way to look at it. So many times we have so many laws on the books that we're just mad at people or think they made the wrong choice, so we put them in jail. Well, what happens when you put somebody in jail? You take them away from their family that they can no longer provide for their family, right? So what does that family now have to do? They have to rely usually on the government for their living and subsistence from now on while that person who was providing their living is in jail. What happens to that person while they're in jail? Well, for about 2 or 3 years, they do nothing but kind of have a master apprenticeship in crime, right? I mean, that's kind of what they're learning, and from other people who are criminals, what they need to do. So you have all these people that the states have to take care of now with state resources. You're having a person whose life is kind of stagnant, they're learning things that they shouldn't do. They get out of jail, and what happens? We make re-entry so hard for them back into society, whether it's where they live, what they can do, what kind of job they can get. So after a while, they get frustrated, and they say, well, I can't find a job. I can no longer provide for my family the way I need to, or that I did before going into jail. So then they remember, oh yeah, the last 2 or 3 years I've learned how to be a criminal. So then they go back into that, and recidivism goes up. So they find themselves in this vicious cycle. So now you've got state resources that are playing into it. You've got people who are constantly in and out of our criminal justice system, costing us even more tax dollars. You're taking people away from their families. You're separating families when we're supposed to be upholding the value of the traditional family, making sure we can do what we can to keep those people tight. And then you're also not allowing these people to have the dignity of work once they get out. When you don't have the dignity of work or the ability to earn success the way you want to, it just takes kind of a piece of you, and it kind of takes some of your soul, and then you're left in a bad place. So started thinking about all these things and think we really should make a difference here. It's one area that I can think of where the government really can affect a lot of good, right? I mean, we're in control of our correctional system. We're in control of our penal system. Who goes to jail for how long? What happens when they get out? What happens before they go? And so that's why I got really passionate about it. I think if you're wanting to keep the family structure together, we need to do that. I think if you want to watch taxpayer dollars, this is a good area for you. On so many levels that we conservatives espouse principles and beliefs on, criminal justice reform fits into it. Now, there are some people that want to go way, way, way far and not ever put anybody in jail. We can't do that, right? There has to be some kind of punishment for some of the crimes. We can't go that far. But I think there is kind of a happy medium in there where you're still punishing the people and putting them in the way they need to be there, while also allowing the dignity of the people who don't need to be there to lead full lives. And even those people, after they paid their debt to society, we still kind of look at them as kind of like a scarlet letter when they come out with that felon on them, whether it's job applications, housing applications. Once you paid your debt to society, you should have paid your debt to society. You shouldn't have any lingering scars. Which is one reason I'm frustrated about the driver responsibility program as well. I don't know if y'all have seen that. It's this program that anytime, whether it's some kind of violation that you get fined for, penalized for, then the system keeps fining you and penalizing you, fining you and penalizing you years after the infraction has happened, years after you paid off. I had one guy reach out to me on social media the other day, ended up paying $12,000, had to pay $12,000 in fees and costs for one violation that he had 6 years before. And when you can't pay that, then obviously they come after you. And it's just a terrible system. So I think criminal justice reform as a whole is something that conservatives need to be a part of, something we need to be acting on.
Sorry.
No. Great.
He was like, I don't even know what I'm saying.
No, that's right. So, are you ready?
No, keep going.
No, okay, excellent. Okay, so, no, go ahead. Are you ready? Is that one on? Is that one on?
Hello? Yeah. We're talking team.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. It was exactly what Matt is saying. It's kind of funny, interesting. I always say that too when I'm talking to people. I didn't run for office because of criminal justice reform, right? It was not even anything I ever thought of, and then I landed on the criminal justice committee and realized how much this is our bailiwick, y'all, and we really need to understand that. We want limited government in all areas of government, and this is an area that, let's see if I'm doing this right, which can literally, hang on a second, which can literally take your life, liberty, and property, right? I mean, this is the area that can do all three of it. And these are the things that we want to defend, that conservatives defend. So we really, this is something that we need to embrace. And it's also an area of, common ground. And there's not many of those anymore these days, right? So this is, so anyway, when I landed on it, I realized how much it is our bailiwick, how much we should be looking at this as well. So just to give you an idea, the Senate Criminal Justice Committee, what we have jurisdiction over is the Texas bills, legislation, deal with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and Texas Juvenile Justice Department and other state agencies, bills amending or creating a criminal offense. Policy area examples would be law enforcement, court processes and systems, corrections, sentencing, jail, parole, probation, and reentry. And obviously I haven't touched on
all of that yet. Been down there for 2 sessions, but certainly haven't delved into all of these, and I'm still learning very much. You don't have to read all this. This is really for me reading. But just so back in 2015, to give you an idea, so HB 324, and again, I'm a senator, so my bills are SBs, but you know, a lot of the Senate bills languish in the House.
It's true.
We have a lot of trouble. We do have a new speaker coming in, so hopefully we'll have some changes in that. So, a lot of these have an HB, to their, you know, like a House member will carry the same bill as you, and you just, you know, whatever gets through the process soonest is how it comes out. But this HB 324 was relating to a requirement that a peace officer obtain a search warrant before conducting a body cavity search during a traffic stop. There was an actual instance of this in Dallas, I think it was 2013. And it was a female cop, it was a female doing the search, but in my mind, you need to have a search warrant in order to do that. So this was legislation that we put forth. HB 2286 relates to the eligibility of certain victims of trafficking of persons. So basically for an order of non-disclosure. So a lot of times what happens is women are trafficked, right? They are put into prostitution. They're not willingly doing this. They are put into the field of prostitution. And so what this particular piece of legislation did is, you know, of course, they have to go through a lot to determine that that was the case. But an order of non-disclosure would say that they could take this off of, the state would know it. This would still be on their record. The state could see it, but other people couldn't, because this wasn't something that they know they willingly did themselves, that they were a victim of somebody that trafficked them. HB 1396 was a bill, again, like all these criminal justice bills that I passed, I think the Senate no problem, but they all languished over in the House. And so what we do is, a lot of times when something comes back over from the House, then we'll pile on amendments. They have to, you know, obviously have something in common with them to be able to be put on. But we did this, so let's see, this particular HB 1396, for instance, my bill that passed in the Senate was 1864, which required a peace officer to obtain a warrant to search a cell phone or other wireless communication devices. These days, our cell phones are our papers, right? And basically that was codifying what was already passed by the Supreme Court into state law. I'm going to quickly go through here. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, and of course I filed civil asset forfeiture reform in my first session as well. Didn't get anything out of that session, and came back the next session, which was this past session, and filed it again. Basically what I want to do is see it go from civil asset forfeiture to criminal asset forfeiture. And so I'm going to be working on that again. We didn't get anywhere with that. There were 3 bills filed to reform civil asset forfeiture. None of them received a hearing, and they went to state affairs, not criminal justice, which was a little frustrating for me. It should have gone to criminal justice committee. Anyway, we'll be continuing our work on that. This past session, another was the SB 271 relating to the issuance of a citation or notice to appear for certain misdemeanors punishable by fine. I only want to see if this was from you, Sharon. No, this one wasn't. I think it was. Sorry, our district attorney. Should have said Sharon. Sorry about that. Because there's some that's 557. That was yours, right? Yes. So, you know, something that what we do as elected officials is we work with our, you know, our district attorney and our police forces, our sheriff and police chiefs. That's what I was just searching for. Our police chiefs, right? We work with each other, and they let us know what's working, what's not working, how we can amend laws, you know, how we can do things to help them better. And this was one from our district attorney relating to the expunction of arrest records and files for certain persons and to the return of certain fees to a person whose criminal record has been expunged. So, you know, if you're not guilty, you should be able to get that off of your record. And of course, you know, authorizing a fee to have that waived. This one was, I believe, we decided that the judge could determine whether that could be waived or not.
HB 1904 relating to the powers and compensation of criminal law magistrates. Okay, so this one again came to us from Tarrant County. Now, help me out, you guys that know this better than I do, but so in Tarrant County, we have criminal law magistrates who are appointed by our elected judges. And they oversee just routine motions. But what they needed from us, for instance, I mean, these were just kind of small things, but mean a lot to our county, to our area. They needed us to say, yes, we could hire part-time magistrates. Because it is a county level position, the counties, only do what the state tells them they can do. And so they needed approval they needed a law passed at the state level saying that yes, they can hire part-time. So, while this is all kind of mundane and somewhat non-interesting, this is the kind of thing that we do down there that you don't hear about, but that's very important to our area. And, it's not all about what you hear from the media ad nauseum, as y'all know what that was last session. Let's see. Then SB 599 relating to the deferral, this is what I want to bring up, relating to the deferral and reduction of waiver of certain surcharges. This is what Matt was speaking about earlier. So this is my explanation here because it's very frustrating. It's called the Driver Responsibility Program. Are any of y'all heard of this? Because sometimes I'm amazed. Yeah. I'm kind of amazed when I go places how many people know about this. I didn't until I was in elected office. So this was established, this driver responsibility program was established to fund trauma care, basically, is why it was put into place. So for every traffic violation, the state applies points to your driver's license. And then those points remain for 3 years on your driver's license. Once you get to 6 points in a year's time, you're enrolled in that driver responsibility program and you receive a bill for $100. So I think what Matt was touching on too is it's double jeopardy. Don't you think? I mean, you're paying. You've already gotten through. You're paid your fine, and yet you have this driver responsibility program that you're into now that you're having to pay your way out of. And a lot of times, even though my understanding is you're supposed to get a letter saying you're in the driver responsibility program, so many people that come to me said they didn't know they were in it. And they can't get a new driver's license, and they've got this debt that's piled up over years. This is something that is a problem, and we need to take care of. I will tell you on the Senate side, Senator Huffines and Senator Hall are very much working on trying to get rid of this driver responsibility program. The problem is, as with everything in government, once we pass something, we have created a lot of people who want to keep it. And I don't blame the hospitals. The hospitals want this funding for their trauma centers. So we fight the hospitals to get rid of this driver responsibility program. And I'm not putting, that's just the reality of it. And that's why I think for me particularly, I'm sort of like, God, we gotta quit passing these laws or doing these things that create constituents that then come down to fighting if we ever want to undo it. We all know there's so many things that need to be undone, but unfortunately we can't because we're fighting so many people on so many levels. So anyway, we are going to work on that again next session to try to do something about that, as well as the civil asset forfeiture. I believe that needs to be criminal asset forfeiture. But again, so it kind of is a huge. It's a big issue, and some of them are very weighty. And some of them are just, kind of small, mundane things. But again, what I want to emphasize to everybody is that this is a conservative's bailiwick. We absolutely must keep all levels and all areas of government limited if we are limited government people, and I am. So, I'm not talking about violent criminals. When I'm talking about reform, I'm talking about nonviolent. And another thing that you mentioned was about licensing. That's another huge issue. A lot of times I'll hear about, you might have experienced this, in jails, they'll even teach them an occupation, for instance. We're doing so great, we're teaching them occupations. Well, when they get out, they can't get licensing for the occupation because of barriers that government has put in place. Oh, no, you can't do that because, the kind of crime that you committed. Right. Have you had some licensing reform
we've looked at it, like if you have a felony on your record, you can't get a license here. If you have a certain amount of crimes in this area, you can't get a license here. It's almost like, I don't know if you've seen it with student loans. If you don't pay your student loans, they can take away your license, which is so counterintuitive, because if they take away your license, then you can't work to actually pay back your school loans. So I'm not sure, and I think we're gonna fix that, but I think you're right, because there's been a lot of focus on workforce training and development in the prisons, and then they get out having this hope and expectation that they're gonna be able to actually contribute back to society and have some dignity and some worth, and then we tell them, oh no, you can't do that. So you're exactly right, we need to look at that.
And again, you know, this isn't being soft on crime, because I'm all about, you know, people deserve punishment. It's about being smart on crime, right? You know, if they have received their punishment, then we need to take out the barriers that government puts in place, right? The government puts in place after they have served their time for the crime. So hopefully they will go on to be productive citizens. And certainly that's not always the case, and I'm not pretending that it is, but let's try to do what we can to not perpetuate the cycle that happens. You know, I'm sure there's stories, I'm sure it's you know, the police chiefs, sheriffs, they can all tell us about horrible stories of people that are just, you know, bad people that need to be put in jail and stay there for a while. But again, this is not on that. These are for people that we need to help get out of this cycle. And I know we do a lot of good reentry in Tarrant County as well.
That's right.
Reentry programs that we have, which is to help them again, kind of get their foot, you know, get their bearings after they've come out, kind of know, you know, where they can go to find a job, where they can go to do different things, you know, so that, again, they can be productive citizens, because that's really what we all want, right?
That's right, and another huge issue along with criminal justice reform is mental health. Because for a lot of times people have done things wrong and we feel like, okay, they gotta go to jail. Well, if you're mentally ill, then it doesn't serve any of the purposes for which we incarcerate people, right? I mean, you put people in jail to deter them from doing it again in the future, to understand the consequences of their actions, to serve as a deterrent to other people as well. But if you're mentally ill, you can't understand or comprehend why you're there or what lesson needs to be learned or that you shouldn't do it again. So I know we've worked with the district attorneys and other people on a real focus on mental health, because if you get that part right, to make sure these people that go to jail, they go to a treatment facility, you get them the help that they need, that saves the taxpayer money from just incarcerating somebody who may just come back in a couple of months, actually helping the individual with their actual problems instead of just throwing them in jail. So this mental health component, you probably heard it talked about a lot, but it's a huge piece of this criminal justice reform. And it's not just once you get out, it's also what's taking place in prisons as well, and that's what we're seeing at the federal level. President Trump has talked about it in the State of the Union. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is actually a huge advocate for this. I think his father was actually in federal prison, and that's kind of giving him a glimpse into what changes need to be made or what reforms need to be made. But there's some things in the actual prison. I remember we had a bill in one of my first sessions that said you can't shackle a female prisoner when she's giving birth or when she's pregnant going into labor. You know, and you think, why would you have to say that? But that was the thing. You can't let these people just go unshackled. But we need to use common sense in some of these things. That's part of the federal, it's called the First Step Act at the federal level. Is, you know, you gotta have some of these humane treatment of the prisoners even once they're in prison. In Texas, we've had problems with overheating and not having air conditioning in our prisons, and you know, that's just not right. Yes, these people have done bad things and they need to learn their lesson. We need to treat them, they're in our custody, you know, and we have to treat them in a humane and dignified way, even though we're trying to send a strong message back home. So it's not just once they get out, but it's actually during the prison sentence, a lot of times giving them that education. I think the seminary is such a huge, vehicle for this, because Ron Simmons had a great line on Twitter the other day. He said, "Why do we welcome the Bible into our prisons but not our schools?" Right? Because if you allowed it in the schools, maybe they would never go into the prisons in the first place, right? And so, yeah, I thought that's a good but it's all part of that vocational training. A lot of these people have grown up in this poverty, cycle of poverty, or these bad areas, and you can't blame it on that. I also get tired when we say, well, you can't blame that person because they grew up in a tough environment. You still have to have personal responsibilities for the decisions that you make and bad choices that you've made. But a lot of times there's no parent at home to tell them to go to class, to keep them educated, to shoot for higher things, and then they get into prison, they've never had any trainable skills. That's where these technical and vocational courses and those helps can come along. We give out diplomas in our Texas prisons as well. I haven't been to one of the graduation ceremonies yet, but I really want to go. Actually, because they said these men and women are just beaming because they've done that. They have an accomplishment in life. Now they can go out and be a useful citizen. So again, as Senator Burton said, there's just so much in criminal justice reform that speaks to the conservative ideal and principles, right? And everybody says, hey, you're a small government guy. I say, I'm not a small government guy, because that just talks about size. I'm a limited government guy, right? I mean, when you go out camping or when it's cold at night, you want a small fire? No, you want a limited fire, right? You want it contained, but you want it to be robust, you want it to be well. So government needs to do what it needs to do to the best of its ability in the areas that it has the proper jurisdiction and role. And so I believe that, and we've gotten so far afield of that with criminal justice reform, because it's all over the place, and we've stepped into places we shouldn't, and putting people in places that we shouldn't. If we got back to incarcerating the people that need to be incarcerated, helping other people out, diversion programs, we have specialty courts now for our people who go through DWIs, we have veterans courts, specialty courts, we have now first responders. Judge Vanover just applied for one of those. We need a first responder, and these specialty courts have more restrictions on them. They're a little more onerous. You have to have a little more accountability and responsibility as you go through it. And we've seen recidivism go down and down and down in these specialty courts because they're coming at it from a different approach. Now, my only thing with the specialty courts is we should have that available to everybody, and we ought to be able to try to treat everybody that way. We just don't have the resources or the capacity right now, but hopefully we'll get there. So we're seeing with these diversionary programs, with these specialty courts, there are better ways to do criminal justice in our state. And I've always loved the collaboration with District Attorney Wilson and Sheriff Wayburn and everybody. I think you see that a lot. The law enforcement wants it just as bad as we do because they're caught in, they're just trying to enforce the laws that we put in. And so they want it just as bad as anybody. So I think sometimes it gets caught up where you are with law enforcement or criminal justice reform. No, they're on the same wavelength. We just need to figure out where that is.
We also need to get away from, I don't know if we can in this political climate, when we do want to change something because we see it as unconstitutional. Our oath is to the Constitution, right? So it's, a lot of times if we want to have change, some people will say that's anti-law enforcement or for law enforcement. It's not either. We are making laws for them to follow, just as the district attorney was just saying. And if there's a law on the books that we feel is unconstitutional, we need to do something about that. It doesn't have to be, back to blue or not back to blue kind of thing. And sometimes we get into that area and that's very frustrating for me. Things don't have to be looked at from that prism only. What we need to do is honor the Constitution. That's what we need to do because you want your constitutional rights, I want my constitutional rights, and that's what we're there to do is to protect them, not to infringe on them. So again, it's not about being for the blue or against the blue or whatever, all these things sometimes that get caught up in when we're wanting to do something, some changes or some reforms. Remember, it's about the Constitution.
That's right, and a lot of times one of the bills we worked on together is a penal code commission. And what it does is, you may not know, but right now we have about 12 to 1,500 laws outside the penal code, which is the criminal code saying what you can and cannot do, and if you do this, you're gonna go to jail, or this is gonna be your penalty. We've got 12 to 1,500 laws outside the penal code for which you can be criminally punished. So there are different administrative codes, there are different places, and some of them are, we had a bill last time about selling pocket watches that Van Taylor carried and how you could get in trouble for that. If you thrash a pecan tree, you go to jail for 6 months. If you dredge for oysters at midnight, you can be criminally liable. And so we've got all these, some of them aren't as old as we would think, but a lot of these old arcane laws that don't need to be there. So what we need to do is either clean them up, repeal them, move them into the penal code if they're legitimate, or combine them because we have a duplicate law in the penal code and outside these administrative agency codes. Because I just think when you have all those laws, that doesn't give the people confidence that they know what they can do and not do. And that leads to a bad criminal justice system and a bad society. And so I think we need to get all those pushed back into the penal code as much as possible so people know what they have a place they know to go, and then we need to make sure that they're responsible laws and make sure we're actually punishing people for things that they should be punished for.
we're working on that. I kind of got ambushed in the Senate hearing and that didn't go very well, but we're going to work on that.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you for listening to me. We have those down there.
Yeah.
You have any questions?
Okay. I am very passionate about this. I'm a military brat. Everything in the world, my family and siblings. So, I've been served in different areas of the military. And I always kind of blew off PTSD until a family member has it. The police don't understand PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not like freaking out over things, but it's a head injury. And the desire to want to drink, the body is craving something to help with the pain they are suffering with in the head, or some have physical injury on the head, and so they want to drink, and so their speech is slurred, they walk funny, and they have a hard time, and they are just immediately thought, oh, you're drunk or whatever, and it's like, no, they're not asked to say you're physical hard to get out of the time. They're not asked to say they don't have trouble with PTSD, because police don't care. They really, I have family members that are very, very, very big-hearted. They will offer well because of injuries and PTSD and
I will tell you, this is an issue, not only PTSD, but autism. I've got some moms that are very, very concerned about that. I think, I'm just somewhere, we were talking about I think one of the remedies, was it with you, District Attorney? Where the remedy is to identify on the driver's license. It was something similar to this, some sort of an identification on the driver's license so that the police know. But there's a lot of issues like that that come up. And here's the problem, I mean, it's just like teachers, we all have there's so much burden on, as far as education is concerned, I want them to teach reading, writing, arithmetic. That's where I am. But, then you've got all these different issues that they have to deal with, which I understand, but it puts a burden on them, as it does our police officers. But I understand from your perspective too. But one of the things, in addition to that, is like training. There was a piece of legislation, I think it was this past session before, believe it or not, about pets coming at, because, a dog is there to protect their owner. And, a police officer shot and killed a family pet, which is understandable. I was very surprised that the police associations actually were way okay with the police officers kind of getting some training on how to identify, a pet as opposed to some vicious dog. I would bet that if there aren't, were you going to say something, Sharon? Is there already this kind of thing for them to get?
So the autism bill is to take it off the driver's license and put it on the license plate.
Right.
So when the officer approaches the
That's right,
car,
that's
he
right.
knows immediately.
That's right.
But when he approaches it, that person already has that. Also, 2 years ago, I think we're got the legislation agreed to increase mental health funding for mental health training for officers.
Yes.
That's been a huge help. A lot of our police agencies, especially here in the Northeast, like Hurstville's Baylor, every single officer is mental health certified already. We've gotten half of our officers mental health certified in the VA's office, so that it improves those relationships so that you're not having this horrible incidents person react to that.
Well, and I would just say, again, I can't speak for everything, I wouldn't say that the police officers don't care, I just say that's not what they're trained in, and so when they encounter somebody, if you're belligerent, if you're obstinate, if you're, I need to do A, B, and C, that's why I think the training is a valuable thing, so you say, okay, maybe there's something else going on here than this person's being belligerent. Somebody brought up, if you're deaf, putting that on the license plate too, because if you go up to and you're not responding to the police officer, if you're getting fidgety and you're scared, you don't know what's going on, or they're using their hands to communicate. Right. So, I mean, these are kind of areas of criminal justice with autism, with PTSD. Those are like those small little steps in criminal justice reform that help us deliver a better criminal justice system that actually have big impacts. And so that's one area where we're all working together on the same page.
Just to let you know, I mean, these are, I don't PTSD might be one that we've talked about actually, but I'm telling you that this is a topic of conversation down there a lot on these different situations that police officers find themselves in, and they need to understand, that there might be something else going on as well, so.
And there's even pilot programs around the state that allow, they just have units that go out and check on people they know have some mental illness or disease that might get into the criminal justice system, and they just keep a track on them. And that's their whole job, is to go around. And they found that they've cut down on recidivism quite a bit by being proactive on those fronts. So there's a lot of good things we can do.
Well, and I just want to add, y'all were talking about the PTSD, that's the basis for the first responder program that our representatives and senators in Tarrant County began. I mean, the legislation was completely passed by Tarrant County legislators, so thank y'all for that.
Judge Bassel.
No, not yet. This is more of a statement than it's a question.
Next.
It's a complimentary statement, so just.
Oh, keep going, please, please.
People don't realize that a Republican legislature and a Republican governor have signed some of the most leading legislation in this country to protect criminal defendants and make sure that only the guilty are convicted. And I must say, and certainly she can speak for herself, a lot of that legislation is modeled after the procedures of the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office.
That's right.
I find it very interesting because she's a tough woman and tough on crime. But I wanted to be sure and mention those that I mentioned about, its functions and things like that. She also understands. That's right. And so she's very active in that area. And it frustrates me so much when many think that the other party owns that issue. And that's very frustrating to me because we're doing lots of good things, as you mentioned, with a Republican governor, a Republican legislature, and we're moving forward with criminal justice reform. Not only do we have a tough district attorney, but we also have a district attorney that understands we don't need everybody to have conviction. And it's good for me, who is in this, I'm in a district that's 50-50. It could easily go Democrat. And so we've got a lot of Democrats in Senate District 10. And so when I go to areas that are traditionally minority, because that is their issue. It's just interesting. That is their issue. And so I have something in common I can talk to them about. And y'all had, you had like expunction workshops and things like that.
In Tarrant County, working with the African American Bar Association, our office has sponsored an expunction clinic every single year since I've been in office. We've done 2 this year, and we do them in different parts of the county. The last one was in Arlington. The one that we got scheduled for next year is in Krause.
And did you see the line was?
Oh, the very first one we did, the line was literally around the block for people who had previously gotten in trouble, and they may have just had an arrest and not a conviction, or they might have gone to a treatment program and had finished it and didn't know that it was that expunged. But it means once you get the arrest, the conviction, everything on the record, so the person can go on with their life. I mean, it's a huge thing. Now, let me say this about our legislative board. So the Federalist Society was meeting in Fort Worth this last week. And this whole Democrat in mass incarceration stuff, maybe that's a problem in the Northeast, but it is not a problem in Texas, because we were just hearing, because of the work y'all have done, there are 7 prisons that have closed in the last 10 years in Texas. We do not mass incarcerate anymore. The legislature for years has encouraged the judiciary and the prosecutors to find other avenues. And actually, Danny, do you remember the number they said? Was it like a 20% decrease in prison population in the last 10 years?
Yeah. And that also falls a decrease in violent crime, right? Also falls a decrease in violent crime. So it's not like we're just getting people out. Yeah. So it's not like you're just releasing them and shutting the prisons and they're still having crime out there. You're getting smart about who you're letting out.
Yeah, 4 minutes.
Is there a way for us to be a little more proactive that we might be interested in coming down and testifying and helping you?
Absolutely.
I don't know how.
Yeah. What do you think the best thing is, to get on the Texas
sled.
Yeah, I was gonna say, T-List, there's a website, you can go in and you can put in criminal justice, you can use whatever words you want, keywords, and then it'll email you every time movement happens on a bill like that. And so then you know, Senator, or
If it's on your committee and you can say, hey, you know, this is from that.
Yes, absolutely, and we're gonna be much better at that. It's really, you're kind of running and gunning, and you're like, I should let somebody know to come down here, but we need more Tarrant County people down there for our committee hearings. We do a lot of good things here, and we're not represented down there that much as Houston and San Antonio.
Dallas.
And Dallas. So anyway, so yes, Texas, if you get on Texas.
T-List.
What is it?
Well,
TLO, okay, TLO.
you need to know that, or
No, you can actually put in like I said, criminal justice, and then you'll see the bills as they're coming up, and if something interests you, then you'll know, and you can find out when the hearing is, you can come down and.
Well, and you can put in legislation too, like if you see Senator Rhodes' bills before, when she files them, you can go in and put in SB 6, SB 20, SB 42, SB 386, and then every time movement happens on those specific bills, then that'll hit.
On that topic, we have a citizen advocate program every year during session. We work on legislation with these people. We go and testify for committees, we talk to committee members, do whatever we can. And we will be doing a training in January for that, where I will teach you how to use that TLO online, exactly how it works.
Do that.
To get more accurate.
Do that, that's really good. Oh, I got it. Wait, I want to just say really
Would be the
quickly.
first time.
Just say really quickly, or my campaign manager will be very angry at me if I don't say. So first off, we had our first volunteer block walk this past Saturday, which, as y'all know, was a monsoon. And even with that, we had 53 people show up. So, you know, we put plenty of pictures out on social media to let the other side know. But it was a washout. We did phone banking and letter addressing and that kind of thing, so we got a lot of work done. But we're gonna be having block walks every Saturday from now until election day, because again, this district is a 50-50 district. We could lose it. That's just a fact. And so we need everybody out there to get our voters out in November. If we get our voters out, we win up and down the ballot. But we just need to remind people not to be complacent. So we're gonna have another block walk this Saturday at 9:30 at the GOP office. This is actually, Matt, I don't think you know this, but we're gonna be, because it just got done. So it's, they got, what?
it's Abbott, Krause, Burton, and Ron Wright.
Rod Wright. So we're walking for all four of us, or was that 4 or 5? In Matt's area, in Matt Krause's area.
I'll be there.
He didn't even know about this. This all got put together. So we're, combining our efforts, making sure that everybody knows, we need to vote straight ticket up and down the ballot. Just want to let you know, we'll have more information out. Okay, sorry. Yes, ma'am. Oh, we have yards. Oh, which are you talking about, Krause or? I've got yard signs right. Please take a yard sign. Yard signs matter.
Unless it's a free trade